All right. Well, welcome, Vanessa Lamaro. It is just beautiful to have you here. And you are a naturopath. And
Yeah.
I've written a few little notes down here to just introduce you, and please feel free to add any extras. You've got a Bachelor in Health Science, and you have specialised in treating particularly hormonal health and anxiety, depression, gut health and stress, which sounds like a perfect fit for you being here to talk to us. And I love how you have written that you're really interested in optimising vitality and overcoming health challenges, and that you've got such a big passion for this work, and you are a lifelong student and continue to learn as I do.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And yeah, I can never stop learning enough. I'm the kind of person that takes textbooks on holiday with me for relaxing. I'm a self-confessed geek, but I just love what I do so much that it is my downtime reading. So
that's beautiful. Couldn't get a better recommendation.
Yeah. So yeah, I've been in practice for over a decade now. I really have been quite generalised in what I do see in clinic over the years, but I seem to have, over the last probably couple of years, seem to have niched a little bit more in mental health and definitely in hormonal health and fertility. So there's a lot of overlap though in terms of often, say for instance, gut health is a big area that I treat, but often an underlying cause of something like irritable bowel syndrome will be anxiety. And so anxiety can be a comorbidity with many other conditions, and sometimes an underlying cause. So some people might present to me and say, oh, I'm having a lot of problems, let's say, with that IBS. And then when I dig deeper, I can, find out that something else they're suffering from is something like anxiety or low mood or panic attacks, things like that, that really, when we address those, can help to resolve other symptoms that are going on. And equally, things like hormones can cause anxiety. So if someone has something like depressed thyroid function, or they have high estrogen and low progesterone, those sorts of issues can definitely potentiate mood disorders, especially anxiety. So those are things that we need to look at. What are the other possibilities that could be causing the mental health issues that someone might be presenting with?
So interconnected, aren't they? We cannot separate the physical self from the mental self.
Yeah. And that's exactly right. And that's something that we, I guess, as from a naturopathic perspective, we see the body as a whole unit. We're not, when you think about a specialist, say an endocrinologist, they focus on the hormonal system, or the hormones, the glands, and then, a cardiologist focuses on the cardiovascular system, and they sort of see things quite reductionist. Whereas our body is like a whole orchestra, and then there's all these different instruments, in that orchestra. And if one instrument's out, just say it is the endocrine system or the cardiovascular system or low neurotransmitters, that can affect that affects the sound that comes out of the whole orchestra. And so that's the way I sort of see the body, and it is very much interconnected, and often there's a knock-on effect when one system's out to other areas of health.
So if someone, what can you offer our listeners and viewers around if they presented with anxiety, and just, that there are, I'm sure, a number of tools you could tell us about, or ways of beginning at least to work with ourselves?
Sure. Look, it's a very big topic, I guess. Like there are certain areas of health that I go, oh, that's easy to look at, because there's very little, like there's little variable causative factors. But with anxiety, there is, a multitude, as we've sort of discussed a little bit, of factors that could be I guess, causing it to be in place. And so my job as a bit of a detective is to do a really thorough case history with the individual that I'm working with, to ascertain, what's happened in the past or what's happening currently on either a physiological or body level, or even on a mental and emotional level, that could be contributing to this person experiencing that anxiety. And in that case, I guess I would go about helping them in different ways, depending on what I feel could be the cause of what's going on. That being said, there are some generalized principles that I would consider for everybody, that could help anybody experiencing anxiety, depending on where it's come from or why it's present at that time. And I guess even though I guess my main modalities as a naturopath are working with natural medicines like herbal medicine, nutritional medicine. So I'm a herbalist as well. And so I do compound herbal medicine. So I might mix up a combination of different herbs that is customized to the person sitting in front of me. Or I can make nutritional medicine. So I compound things like amino acids and vitamins, depending on the person's needs. And then I use some key other natural medicines that are pre-formulated, depending on what we need. But then we use dietary strategies, lifestyle strategies. And so I like to see lifestyle and dietary strategies for anybody with any kind of health concern as the foundation. So when we're building a house, we want that foundation to be really rock solid, so that anything we put on top is going to be nice and stable and going to work. And so I see my medicines as scaffolding, I guess, but the foundation is diet and lifestyle. And so first of all, I'll look at potentially lifestyle factors. There are things that people do that can potentiate their anxiety. So I find I've come across this term, which I relate to a lot of my patients, which is rushing women syndrome. And it's this, this woman, I'm sure you can, and I relate to, unfortunately, too closely, but because I'm so aware of it, I put in place strategies to help myself. But, we are living in an age where, as women, we're trying to be superwoman. We're often working, we're often have families and children and partners that can be like children. And, and we've got homes and we've got mortgages. And then we've got all of this pressure of social media, like telling us that we need to look perfect and act perfect and be perfect and have the best social life, and ads coming on TV telling us that we're too fat or too this or too that. Like there's just this, I think this massive weight of expectation that we have on ourselves that is created through I guess the current modern day society that we live in. In addition to that, we also don't live in the communal environment that our ancestors did. And so we don't necessarily have the close connections. Like a Facebook friend is very different to a friend that you sit over a table with having coffee and sharing your innermost secrets. And we don't have the time as much to connect with other people. So we've lost that tribal connection often. And so women, well, men and women, I do see men with anxiety too, but I guess I'm thinking about sort of like quite a common presentation that I see, which is that wired and tired woman. She's like wired with anxiety, exhausted. Probably hormones are out, thyroid's out, they're starting to experience less ability to cope. And I truly believe that the lifestyle component of that is extremely relevant. And then, the adrenal exhaustion is something that's, a bit of a, common term that's used these days, because it's a real thing. Like people's adrenals just cannot keep up with this busy lifestyle. So in terms of lifestyle, I'd really like people to take a bit of a step back and have a look at what can they do in their current life to take the pressure off a bit, to make their lifestyle more nurturing for them, to make their lifestyle, when I say lifestyle, I mean their life, their experience, their work life, their home life, their social life, their personal time. So how can they gift more to themselves, more self-kindness time, more self-time, and things that help them to feel more calm. So specifically with anxiety, I'll ask them questions like, when do you feel the happiest? When do you feel the most peaceful? And they might say, oh, often nature's a really great place. So actually connecting with nature in a physical way, like barefoot on the beach or on the grass or sitting amongst some trees or by the ocean, these are things that often help people to feel a lot calmer. Also using strategies like mindfulness techniques such as deep breathing and becoming, with anxiety, we're often up here, we're out in our, like, often anxious people are quite intelligent people because there's a lot going on in here. And so everything's out here. We're often future projecting. So rather than sitting in the past, it's often worrying about what could happen. So bringing people back into that present moment and back into their body. And often I'll do grounding exercises as well, like connecting with the earth. So rather than being up here, they become more centered. And so breathing exercises, feeling their bum on the seat, their feet on the floor, their hands wherever they sit, their breath on their nose, they're things that people can do in the moment if they're conscious and aware enough to remember to do it, which is a habit that needs to be cultivated. So those are sorts of some of the, I guess, lifestyle strategies, tip of the iceberg, but some things, minimizing things that they have to do in their life, making more self-time and being more conscious of grounding and being in the body are some things that we definitely work on. And then the other part of the foundation is that dietary side of things. And so just making sure that people are feeding their body well. And, some things that often don't get thought about are like stimulants can be quite detrimental to people that suffer anxiety. So caffeine can be a real issue. And sometimes even just removing a single coffee a day can really reduce somebody. I love coffee, but I have, one every morning. But for some people, it needs to be something to be trialed, to be removed, because it can, because it is stimulating on the nervous system, it can exacerbate anxiety type symptoms. So that's something I'll look at. And also, what's the quality of their macronutrients? Are they having enough proteins and fats that are going to help to anchor down their blood sugar levels and to really nourish their body and have a slow release of nutrition into the bloodstream? Or are they having fast carbs that are going to spike blood sugar, cause that increased heart rate, which then can exacerbate an anxiety feeling? So we look at those kinds of things as well as micronutrients, so to make sure that they're getting all the cofactors they need to produce the neurotransmitters like GABA that are going to induce that state of calm.
So interesting.
I could go on and on, really. So, yeah. And then obviously there's the medicine in addition to that.
Even after a coffee, I know in my own body that sensation is actually the same sensation as anxiety. So it can be quite confusing.
Exactly. And when we've got, I guess, triggers, so we just say for me, I have just so I can share that as well. I would say most people have a kind of, I feel, if they've got some kind of mental health, I want to say chink in the armor kind of thing, they'll have a tendency towards something. So some people have a tendency towards low mood or depression. Some people have one towards irritability. Mine is towards anxiety. So I'm someone who has a lot on my plate, like to be busy, but overwhelm and anxiety is a place that I can go if I don't manage myself well. And in my early 20s, I really suffered from quite debilitating anxiety and social anxiety. And I had to teach myself strategies to get over that. But what can happen if we have multiple anxiety episodes is we get triggers that then feel a certain way. So for me, heart palpitations, shortness of breath, a tightness in my throat, tingly in my head, and obviously anxiety type thoughts was something that I would experience. And now when I have even symptoms like that, it can trigger that, oh, am I feeling anxious? So as you say, the caffeine can make you feel the same symptoms, and then it can sort of potentiate that anxiety cycle. So I get it from high sugar. So because I don't eat a lot of carbohydrates, because I've found that they don't really agree with me. When I do have a bit of a binge on something like birthday cake or something, that has higher sugar, I call it an anxiety attack without anxiety. I've got my heart going, I've got this kind of buzz going on, and it's not enjoyable. And so I think sometimes we need to also, decipher if the person's having multiple factors contributing to that, that maybe aren't all anxiety related.
Because I know then the thoughts can tend to run away with, my thoughts can run away with themselves if I'm not mindful of what my body's doing and responding to. And I can reassure myself by saying, oh, it's that coffee you just had.
Yeah. And that can be really, like, would you say that when you say to yourself, oh, I just had a coffee, that's probably why that helps you to then calm those thoughts down when you have a reason? Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I find that, like, even say women who feel, say, anxiety in a premenstrual time, I could count on 30 hands how many times I've heard this said is, I was feeling really anxious and I didn't know why, and I was getting really upset. And then I went, oh, I'm getting my period tomorrow. Oh, that's what it is. And it's like this relief of, there's a reason why I'm feeling this way. And so I think becoming aware of why things are occurring can really help us to rein in those crazy, runaway thoughts.
That's where the mindfulness of our, of making comes in. And
Yep, real consciousness and consciousness and awareness of thought. And I feel that one of the things I talk a lot about is becoming the observer of our thoughts. And, someone like Eckhart Tolle is a great advocate for that concept. And many, many wonderful people, Deepak Chopra, Joe Dispenza, they're all people that talk about this concept of awareness of self. And I like to imagine, like, for instance, if we're in that state of anxiety, and say I was feeling anxiety, I'm in it, like I'm sitting here, I'm feeling the feelings, I'm thinking the thoughts, and I am anxiety in that moment. But if I can recognize that I'm actually something far greater than that, and I pull myself out, like over here, somewhere above, and looking down on myself, in a way of being the observer. And I'm like, oh, okay, so she's experiencing, or I am, but I'm experiencing this at the moment. But it helps me to detach and become aware of what's actually going on in a less intense way, because rather than being in it, I then become the observer of it. And that's something that's also been really helpful for me over the years is pulling myself out of the experience and into the observer position, which I truly believe we are, because the anxiety is happening in the mind, and we're not the mind. We're something greater than that. So, the mind is our tool, not us.
Yeah, not the master.
Yes, it's not the master, even though we false sense of, we drop into that sometimes. But the more aware we become and the more conscious we become, the less we allow it to run free. And I call it the monkey mind, like it's that chatter, 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 chatter. You're not good enough. This is happening. Da, 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 I've got to get my thing. It's just that constant chatter that we need to just calm it right down. And, I think present moment awareness is probably the most powerful way to do that. So when you're washing your hands, focus on washing your hands, feel the water, feel the soap, feel the towel. When we're walking from one place to another, be mindful in that process of walking. What can I see? What can I hear? What can I feel? That's instantly grounding and brings us back into our body. And often I feel that people go through their lives unpresent to what is around them and the beauty that's around them and the things they can be grateful for that are around them, because they're just worrying about something in the future.
Yeah, I have on my bathroom mirror written, "Am I present?" And often I'll go, "Oh, no," and then stay with brushing my teeth and bring me back to my breath. And
I love that. My partner, on his computer, he has in his office, he has Be Here Now on his screensaver, and my login to my computer is Presence. So every time I sit down to I shouldn't be telling you that, but someone steals my computer. No, but every time I sit down to my computer, I have to write the word presence, which makes me take a deep breath, sit up well, and really, rather than going, oh, I better check Facebook, or I'll check my emails, what was my intention to get onto my computer? And because I work a lot on my computer, so I mean, I spend most of my days on my computer, whether I'm in consultation or I'm Skype consulting or I'm working on the business. My computer and I are best mates, but it's got a lot of distractions going on as well. So, you know, it's very easy to go into overwhelm. So yeah, presence is key for sure.
Yeah. And find lots of ways to bring that in, little reminders. I've got little things all over my house too.
It's great, isn't it? Yeah, I love that idea of little triggers around the house and even in the car. I'm a big fan of using the car for good, as in time. So whether people like to listen to something that's self-development to help them with mindfulness, I think it's a really wonderful time. Like I use Audible, the app or the site that has all the audio books. So I'm consistently learning through my downtime when I'm driving around. And when I'm doing things like cooking dinner, I'll pop on, a podcast or something like a summit like this, and use that time. So I think when people have anxiety, using the resources, there are so many beautiful resources out there to teach mindfulness, presence, and consciousness strategies. And we can use our downtime, like I'm folding, washing. I think of a million different things I do that I use that downtime when I don't have to be focused on anything with my full attention to be learning about what strategies I can put in place. And what you will find is that, it's the same message put in many different ways, and it's beautiful to hear from different teachers because it just integrates it in a deeper and different level each time. So yeah, I just find that that's part of that whole lifelong learner thing. But definitely in terms of mindfulness, it's a key one for anyone suffering from anxiety.
And what about, can you speak a little bit more about gut health and mindful eating, that whether we rush food and
Absolutely. So I guess that's another that really tags on from a couple of the conversations we've already had today. One being the rushing women syndrome, two being, choosing the right foods to fuel your brain. Again, with the busy lifestyle that we have, I believe that we've lost some traditions, even less old traditions, like traditions from our parents, which was, let's sit down to dinner and have a conversation and eat slowly, give thanks for the meal that we're having. I often have European exchange students staying with me, and I just love, I'm from European heritage, so I grew up with this as well. But that idea of celebrating with our loved ones with a meal and taking time. So I've got a lovely French boy at the moment, but I've had 3 Italians in the last year, and their love of sitting over a long lunch and talking about our lives and what we're doing and what our dreams and aspirations are. And that in itself is a beautiful healing anti-anxiety thing, if we like the people around us anyway. Not so good if you don't love your family, but choose the people you like and do that. But also just the fact that, many people eat in the car, eat standing at the kitchen bench, eat standing at the fridge, eat going through a drive-through, eat at their desk, eat in front of their computer, very much counselling, especially with anxiety. I've got a few ladies at the moment that I've encouraged they've got busy office jobs where they're the ones that they receive the calls and they feel they've taken on beautifully, because their personalities are amazing, but they've taken on it's their responsibility to take every call that comes in that day. And so they can't leave the office to have a lunch break. And so they sit out the back and they hear the phone call and they're just like, oh, I've got to quickly run in and get that. So I'm encouraging them to, one, negotiate with their boss an actual break, because the bosses are just like, oh, well, if they're happy to do it, let them do it. And to make them leave the office building and to go outside in the sunshine and in nature. So for one of them, there's like one tree, and she's started sitting underneath this one tree. And she's not allowed to take her mobile, but she knows she's only gone for 20 minutes. So she figures, it's going to be okay. But that has actually transformed everything for her, because she's stopped scoffing her food in front of the computer. So her digestion has improved without actually even any medicines. And she's connected with nature, and she's, you know, calmed, I guess, the frenzy of the first part of the day. So she's going in renewed and refreshed to that second part of the day. She's changed. Even I focus sunlight coming into our brain, which talks to, you know, our cortisol and melatonin levels as well, and lots of different benefits from just leaving our workplace to get outside and be in nature. But I know I'm going on a bit of a rant because I'm thinking of a tangent. I'm thinking of a few different things, but slowing down.
Beautiful example.
Thank you. Yeah. And I think it's just, you know, part of our culture is that we've started eating quite unconsciously. And I'm as guilty of this, you know, on a busy clinic day. I often don't leave my consulting office, and I will eat my food at my desk, but I really try not to do anything at the same time. Even if I've only got 10 minutes, I try to sort of switch off the screen and just eat slowly and calmly, because it can make, what happens when we rush and eat is we're in a more, especially if we're busy and rushing, is where our nervous system goes into something called a sympathetic response. And most people would know that as a fight or flight response. So we're ready to fight something or flee something. And in that state, a lot of our body's focus goes to our big muscle groups and away from our digestion. So if you were about to, you know, try to fight a tiger or flee a tiger, your body's not interested in digesting nutrition from food. It's interested in running or fighting. And so unfortunately, a lot of people live their lives in that fight or flight, which means that their digestive secretions, so their hydrochloric acid in their stomach, or their pancreatic enzymes from their in their small intestine, or their bile secretion from their liver and gallbladder, all become reduced because there's no nervous system attention in that area. It's all gone to adrenal secretions, you know, muscular, the muscles, the brain, all of that gets turned on, but our digestive system gets turned off. So what we want to do is get into the parasympathetic mode and what's called rest and digest. So like that's a more lay term for that parasympathetic nervous system. And so to do that, we need to sit down, we need to take a deep breath, we need to chew slowly, we need to sit and think about, taste the food, feel what, you know, like a lot of people don't even taste their food. They're just like, it's just like fuel, and not even that. Like, I don't even think, some people even think it's just like, I'm hungry, feed me, off I go again. So I think, you know, really carving out time, even if it's just 10 minutes to sit down with everything that you put in your mouth, can make a huge difference. And that's not sitting down with the computer or the steering wheel. It's just sitting somewhere. And so I'm a big fan of the dinner table. We set the table every night. We all sit down to dinner every night, and we all, you know, there's no TV, music, candles, that sort of thing, but, you know, nothing else that's distracting us from the attention on the food and the people around us. So that's important. And then in addition to that, which I think is what your question might have actually been about, is the gut-brain axis, and how the gut is actually where a lot of our GABA and serotonin, which our GABA is a key neurotransmitter for, it's anxiolytic. It reduces anxiety. It helps us to be, I call it calm and clear. So we want GABA, as someone with anxiety, we want more GABA. And then serotonin, a lot of people know that as our happy hormone, happy neurotransmitter, which is the one that we need for reducing depression. But both of those can be really instrumental in reducing anxiety. And so serotonin and GABA are produced mostly in the gut. Now, if we have an unhealthy gut, if we've got an unhealthy microbiome or gut bacteria, that will reduce our ability to create those neurotransmitters and will allow less available for our brain to use. And so a big thing that I work on in my clinical practice is to upregulate GABA and upregulate serotonin through, definitely through all the diet and lifestyle stuff that we've touched on, but then coming into my, I guess, natural arsenal of medicines, I use definitely herbal medicine. There's some amazing anxiolytic and nervous system supporting herbs, but then also through amino acids and vitamins that make up the precursors. But basically, there's precursors to our bodies making those neurotransmitters, and they're really simple things. They're amino acids, which are protein, or the little parts of protein, and they're vitamins like vitamin B6, zinc, magnesium. Really simple, beautiful medicines that when we give more of those precursors to the body, it can manufacture more of the end product, which is going to help us to feel more calm. And then I use the herbal medicine in addition to that to really be like a tonic to the nervous system, the adrenals and the brain. And there are certain, like for instance, kava, which a lot of people might be aware of as a medicine. Well, it's actually more of a cultural drink in Fiji, which is why they're probably also happy and chilled out. I use kava as a herbal medicine specifically to help with anxiety, but also with sleep and pain issues. So kava upregulates GABA, and it has been clinically trialled against one of the leading anxiolytic medications, and it was found to be as effective with no side effects. So yeah, the worst thing that can happen with kava is you get a bit blissy. Like I always say to people, if you start to feel a little bit woo, we just need to back the dose down a little bit. And it's really almost like, I don't want to say a drunk feeling, but it's kind of like that. So just very rarely will someone have too much, but some people are a little bit more sensitive to it than others. But that's like such a simple intervention, and it can help people to avoid having to go down that drug path. I really like them to trial some natural alternatives first.
Wow, fantastic. So much there. I love it. And I think that so much is so simple and powerful. I think of a beautiful person in my life who she closes her eyes to taste her food, and she really looks as if she's appreciating what I've just given her or what someone else has just given her, and she's totally mindfully eating. And
it's a beautiful thing, isn't it?
Yeah, there are a lot of simple ways to start working with our anxiety.
I think like what you just touched on then is like, and I've been like rabbiting on, but really a lot of the theme underneath that, when I think about it, is slowing down, like slowing down and being present to what is actually happening in the moment, and then having that gratitude. Gratitude diary is something I use a lot with people. I have my own, I call it my gratitude and celebration diary. And every morning when I wake up, most mornings, some mornings I'm rushing. So, kids to school, get to the clinic in time. Some, I have to say, probably 5 out of 7, I would get it written. But I just have a page each day, and I date it, and I number 5 things I'm grateful for or want to celebrate. So it might be a win I had the day before. It might be something really little, like I'm so grateful for my beautiful home or my gorgeous children, and sometimes it's something even if someone feels they have not much to be grateful for, like some people find it hard to think of good things because they're going through a really tough time. But it could literally be the most basic things. I'm so grateful that I have food to eat, or that I live in a non-war-torn country, or that I have someone special in my life who loves me, or, like just the bringing us back to what is really great about my situation right now. And for me, starting my day with that is a really lovely grounding way to begin my thoughts for the day, and puts me in a really lovely headspace for anything that I might encounter that day. Because, shit happens every day, stuff goes wrong, things happen. And I think it's really how we respond to that stuff that helps us to be happier and less anxious. And so it's learning how to respond in a different way. And I think if we can preset our mind in a gratitude fashion, that can be really helpful. And something that I also do with that gratitude diary is I'll slip in something that actually isn't true. So I might write, I'm grateful for this and this that are actually things I have, but then I'll throw in like a goal. And so and I write it in that it's already happened. So I'm so grateful that this, I now have this, and I'm so, it happened with ease and it came really quickly to me, and it feels wonderful to have this. And so, it's one of my goals that I have, whether that be personal or business or whatever. And so I'm telling my mind of, that something that hasn't happened yet has come into my life. And I think that's another really good strategy. So it could be, it's a bit like an affirmation, and I love affirmations as well. But for someone with, anxiety as an issue, it might be something, I'm so grateful that I now, feel peaceful and calm in my daily life. I'm so grateful that, I now have, I'm now the controller of my thoughts, and I feel happy in my day. And, little affirmations like that can be really great. And I always say, fake it till you make it. It might feel completely untrue, but do our very best to think it and feel it and visualize it as though it's already happened. Absolutely. And I think that that's a really powerful strategy to sort of trick our brain, but also bring something into creation that maybe hasn't been created yet.
Yep.
Mm.
Wonderful, Vanessa. I think that's beautiful. And is there anything else you want to add, or is that a good place to finish?
Oh God, I could go on forever. Look, I guess from a more, I touched on it at the beginning, but from a more, I don't want to say medical, but thinking about the physiology of the body, there are certain things that I guess from my more scientific brain, I feel that I must mention, which are that there are often underlying causative factors. So some people will go, I'm anxious, that's my personality, I can't do anything about it, or there's nothing. It's kind of I feel some people take it on as a personality trait, when potentially it's not actually that. So I think it's important to rule out potential underlying factors that would be something that seeing a naturopath or even an integrated doctor or someone who understands these things could help to identify. So definitely hormonal imbalance is a big one. So making sure that a person is well supported with optimal hormone levels, whether they be reproductive hormones or thyroid or adrenals. So they're the three kind of big areas. Say a man with low testosterone and high estrogen could experience anxiety, or a woman with low progesterone or potentially even low estrogen going through a menopausal transition could be experiencing anxiety. So that's something really important. Adrenal fatigue, so lowered cortisol levels or even high cortisol levels in the initial fight or flight stage can cause anxiety. Thyroid dysfunction, especially hypothyroid or Hashimoto's disease, which is an autoimmune thyroid condition. Anxiety is a hallmark of those, which often gets overlooked by GPs if just say their thyroid stimulating hormone's been checked and it kind of looks okay. They're not necessarily looking any deeper to see what their actual thyroid hormones look like, or whether they have antibodies, or whether there is an underlying issue there. That's probably one of the bigger things I see that gets missed. Also, there's an area that I'm very interested in, which is around methylation and pyrols. So these are, there's an amazing, BioBalance is an Australian area that integrated practitioners study in, but it's looking at methylation, which is a key process in the body. And some people may have heard of the MTHFR mutation, which is a gene mutation that we can test for, which can make you more likely to have a methylation issue, but that's not the only thing that can create methylation issues. So methylation issues can cause people to feel more anxiety and depression. As can pyrrole disorder, which is a genetic, also tends to be a genetic issue, where people lose more, specifically B6 and zinc, through urinary pyrroles, and that means that there's not enough cofactors for their body to produce the GABA that they require. So simple interventions with B vitamins and zinc can help to, well, not just that makes it really simple, it's not quite that simple, but can really help someone to overcome their anxiety on a physiological level, so a body level, in addition to all of that lovely mindset stuff that we've discussed. And yeah, so yeah, just making sure that we're ruling out, even iron deficiency can cause anxiety. I was terribly iron deficient, and I think that was probably a contributor to my early 20s anxiety. I had severe iron deficiency where I was hospitalized and was given iron transfusions and all sorts of things. But I was a mess at that time. I, couldn't keep my head on straight at uni, and that was the cause. As soon as I got my iron up, I was a lot better. Wow. So yeah, there's just looking at those sorts of things is important in addition to everything else we've discussed. So yeah.
Fabulous. So much. Thank you. Thank you for your generosity, and people can contact you and do Skype sessions, can't they?
Absolutely. Yeah, so I'm based on the Sunshine Coast in beautiful Queensland, and so I have a clinic in Maroochydore there, but I also I consult with people all over Australia, even in London in America. I've got a couple of people that I see. So Skype's probably one of my preferred options because I like to be able to connect by looking at somebody, but I also do phone consultations, and I also offer a free half-hour assessment with anybody that is even considering working with me. So that can be booked through my clinic, and that can be via Skype, phone, or in person, because I really like that opportunity for someone to meet me, for them to share their issues or their challenges with me, and then I can really give them a realistic idea if it's something that I can help with or not. And so we get to feel if we're a good fit to work together, and then if they're interested in having an initial consultation, we can just book that from there. So that's a good option too.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Vanessa.
Oh, that's my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me on, Nikki. I really appreciate it.
It's been wonderful having you.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, I wish you all the best with this beautiful summit. I think it's absolutely such a beautiful, heart-centered mission that you're on, and I think it's extraordinary. So thank you for having the insight, the inspiration to create such a wonderful gift to the world.
Thanks.
Great.